Hello again. Welcome to another Fresh from the Theater review. I just got back from seeing Curry Barker's Obsession. This is not a movie that I was planning like months in advance to go see. I hadn't even heard of this film till about a month ago when me and my grandfather, who I call Guy, went to see Lee Cronin's The Mummy, and the trailer played before that, and I immediately was like, this looks interesting. And the basic premise is some guy named Bear, played by Michael Johnston, I believe that's his name, is in love with this young woman named Nikki, played by Inde Navarrette. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she's his childhood friend, but he's never had the courage to tell her how he feels. He's a pretty gutless wimp. And one day he stumbles across something called a One-Wish Willow. It's like a toy in a magic shop where you snap this twig while making a wish and it comes true, and of course he wishes that she would love him, and it happens. And then it goes the route of be careful what you wish for, and it becomes so intense and terrifying that he wants to find a way to undo it, but seems like it's too late. And when I saw the trailer for this movie, the first thing that it reminded me of was this episode of The Twilight Zone called The Chaser, which is very similar. It's about a guy who's overly in love with this woman. Although in that show, he's a lot more devious. He deliberately drugs her with a love potion, but what comes after that is very similar to this, where she becomes so in love with him that he can't stand it anymore. But in this one, the character, it was clear from the trailer when he did the twig snap, he probably didn't believe it was really going to work, but now it has. And now that I've seen it, this was a very good horror film. I really enjoyed this, and before I jump into it, I just want to say, just because I'm a fucking movie buff, so gotta go where my mind went when I heard the title. Because there actually is another movie called Obsession from 1976 by Brian De Palma. It's not connected to this film in any way. This one is a noir, Hitchcockian thriller. But yeah, just when I saw that title, I'm like, I guess enough time's passed, people have forgotten that there was another movie with the title. And the Brian De Palma film, before I lose track of what I'm here to talk about, is a pretty great film. A little hard to find, but it is pretty great. I think it's one of his best thrillers, and it's definitely worth checking out. And this new Obsession, which is, again, completely different, no connection, it was a very effective horror film. It has a main character who I wouldn't say is likable, but he's the kind of character who you can feel some pity for. And again, unlike the Twilight Zone episode, this character, I would not say he's evil, but he definitely just goes with this thing, not keeping in mind. The character has a lot of flaws, and it's a little unclear just how much sympathy you're supposed to have with him. Because the main character, who is the most sympathetic, is the Nikki character, who is just done so fucking dirty by this fucking sap. She loses all free will, and the trailer somewhat alludes to this, but in the film it's confirmed, and as it goes on, it's kind of clear it's not even fully her, and I'll get into this a little bit later, but the actress, Inde Navarrette, again, it's hard to pronounce, but she is the standout actor in this film. She gives an incredible performance. This is practically Oscar-worthy in my opinion. She plays this person who's normal, friendly, nice, and then gets overtaken by this magic spell. And while she's completely under its control, there are moments where she starts to break through a little, but then has the control taken away. And the way she can switch back and forth is amazing. There are parts where she is sympathetic and seems broken, and then the next, she's a fucking lethal, terrifying monster. Everybody in the cast, the main cast, I think, does great. Michael Johnston does well playing this pathetic guy with a lot of layers who didn't mean to cause trouble, but he has, and now he has to reap the consequences, and he's pretty much told there's no way out beyond ending it. As it went on, I was pulled in, I was on the edge of my seat. I found myself many times just sitting there scared. Like, this is a horror film that, because I've seen a lot of horror films the past few years that have good atmosphere, but this one really scared me a bit more than the average horror film I've seen in the cinema lately has. And the supporting actors, Cooper Tomlinson, Megan Lawless, who play the two main characters' co-workers, friends, Ian and Sarah, they fill their roles very well, and they're great additions to the film. They're not wasted. They create characters who, again, at times are sympathetic, and then at times show some sleazier sides, but mostly with the Ian character. But everybody does great, and the music is so fucking effective, done by this guy named Rock Burwell, and yeah, that's a good name. And the cinematography by Taylor Clemens, also great. Like, the lighting in this goddamn movie is fantastic. It reminds me of some lighting you'd see in stuff like Targets by Peter Bogdanovich. The way they film the Nikki character just creates so much unease, it's incredible. And what really is impressive about this movie was made, according to what I've read, for only about $1 million. Yeah! In this day and age, like, this is a $1 million low-budget film. It's so well done, you can forget easily just how small it actually is. Like, it took me a bit after the film was over to realize we're only in a couple locations, and there's not that much of a cast in it. It has a lot of personality, it has great characters, and I've always said personality, style, good characters can go a long way. And the storyline, I guess, like I said, it reminded me a bit of the Chaser episode of The Twilight Zone. So it's not like 100% original, but it's well executed and extremely engaging. So yeah, it scared me legitimately. And not just with the performances or the tones. There's a few jump scares in this, and you know, jump scares can be cheap, but there is one jump scare, and I won't spoil it, but it happens in the last third, and it legit made me jump in my seat. And this jump scare is on par with Jaws and Creepshow as far as a jump scare that can just make you go, holy shit! Yeah, I know I'm probably sounding a little overly hyping, and I know this film's getting a lot of positive reviews, but yeah, this is a case where, unlike Send Help, where the mass public seemed to really get it, and I was not a fan, I am a fan of this. And Curry Barker, who made it, I'm just gonna be honest, and this is probably gonna hurt some people's viewpoints of me as far as me being a YouTuber, but I had never heard of him until I saw the trailer for this movie and then looked up who made it. Yeah, he's a YouTuber, and he made a small horror film about 2 years ago called Milk and Cereal. Found footage, and the behind the scenes stuff is just as engaging as the movie itself. Like, it almost reminds me of when Chris Stuckman made Shelby Oaks. I mean, completely different production stories, but it's cool to see someone in the YouTube sphere go on to make a legit horror film that's getting this mass distribution. Although This film is going over a lot better than Shelby Oaks did, which I did a review for earlier this year, and I thought it was very well made, but it had a lot of problems. This one, also very well made, has very few problems I can think of. I legit loved it, although this film emotionally wrecked me because it was so painful, just one, seeing the Nikki character go through all this, and the Bear character, just, you look at him, he has moments like, in his heart, he wants to do the right thing, but he is very cowardly and very selfish. Part of him wants her to love him, but he also doesn't want to keep her prisoner, but he's too scared to do what he has to do to end it. In the end, it's a tragic movie, but some of the best horror films are, and hard to say what filmmaker this reminds me of. The tragedy of some of these characters almost reminds me a little of some of John Carpenter's films, but I would not call this a film done in the style of a John Carpenter movie. Maybe like it's on par a little with the tragedy of Candyman, the original Candyman, like in terms of just horrible stuff happening to people that don't deserve it, but it is what it is. The ending, well, not 100% what I would have gone with, felt very fitting, particularly for the fates that happen to certain characters. And as I always do, I list my pros and cons, although I may have actually said a majority of them. Once again, legit unsettling, terrifying design, lighting. I was always very much on the edge. The only thing that took me out of it were there were two people in the theater who kept speaking throughout the movie, which, really? And there are some parts, which I'll get into, I'm gonna have a spoiler section here. There are some parts that normally I would think is pretty fucking stupid, pretty retarded, but in this film, it was handled very well, and like there's some parts that normally I wouldn't get into, but they did it well, and overall, it's sad. There are moments of hope, but those are just squashed like a fucking roach. All in all, great, excellent horror film. The stuff with the magic toy that he gets from a magic shop is probably the most, you have to just go with the flow. Like, you gotta wonder, like, why don't more people know about this shit? But it's not, like, as far as far-fetched plot devices go, it's not the worst, and it's well handled. There's one scene where Bear talks to the dude that owns the shop. Well, it could have gone a really goofy route. The guy gives as I said, hey, you made your bed, lie in it, speech. As far as the cons go that aren't spoilers, after the two start to date, because a big theme of it is that they just out of nowhere fall in love and everyone around them's like, what the fuck? But there is one part of it that as an audience member, that I thought was a little rushed, which is after they start to date, we see a in love montage, which feels very, like, I feel like we could have seen one more normal pace scene of them, like going on a date or something, or their friends finding out, but no, it's a very rushed montage, and well, I'm not against there being a montage. I feel like the montage happened a little too soon, because the film jumps into him making the wish pretty quickly, and the pacing's pretty good except for that fucking montage. The Bear character, the idea is he's supposed to be socially awkward and very uncomfortable to be around. It's amazing that he has the friends that he has. But there are one or two scenes, like when he initially buys the magic stick that he breaks. When he buys it and the conversation he has with the clerk who sells it to him, I'm like, okay, that was a little much. And he can be very annoying, but most of the time it fits and it leads to you just not knowing what to think about him. And the biggest con I guess you could have is all the main supporting young folk work in a music store, and the owner of the store is played by Andy Richter, Conan O'Brien's sidekick, and Mort from Madagascar. He's been funny in the past, but he was just wasted in this role. He has fucking nothing to do here. He's just there in the background. I'm like, why would you get someone like him for such a small, meaningless role that doesn't play into any fucking part of the story? Like, he's pretty much a background extra. I just like, why get him if you're not going to use him? It's like Ron White. He was hired and not used for any comedic scenes in one of the Sex and the City movies. I'm just like, the fuck? Nonetheless, good film, and I recommend going to see it in the cinema. So if you don't want the ending ruined, then stop here, go see it. But if you have seen it, stick around.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
If you want some more sex and violence, with a helping of roller derby, outer space, and criminal trials, that means you miss Cinemax. Pick up my new book, Skinemax, a love letter to all things softcore in the 90s, over on Amazon, which is on ebook, paperback, and hardcover. I hope you enjoy.
Okay, let's talk about, I guess, the spoiler moments. First, before I get to the ending, there are those moments where, like, the film is not overly gory. There is some blood, there are some dark themes of suicide, but it's only in a few specific moments, and the most disgusting parts, I guess you could say, of the film involve Bear having a cat that dies, and after the spell makes Nikki fall in love with him, and as I said, she is still in there, but she can't get out, and in a moment that could be her trying to get out, or could be this new possessed version of her, because it's implied like this personality is something not her. And there's a very effective scene where Bear makes a phone call to the company that made the sticks, and the voice on the other end, which I looked it up, is Curry Barker himself doing this voice, explains the rules, and talks about the idea of, is this really her in love with him, or is it being forced upon her? And the voice says, would you like to talk to her? And then all of a sudden we hear the voice of Nikki screaming in pain. So there's definitely some supernatural shit going on, and I was almost expecting there to be something happening in the house when he went back in, but no, there wasn't. So the reach of this company and just how malicious they are, it's up for debate. And as I said before I went off to this part, the only two really disgusting moments in the film involve Nikki sending a lunch with Bear to work, And earlier they made jokes about him being a food critic because he likes to bitch about food. He likes to bitch about everything. While eating his lunch, he sees a note that says, "What do you think of the sandwich, cat?" And then it hits him. The sandwich is made from his cat that died earlier in the film. And this could have been unnecessarily silly, but it's well handled. And you feel the horror of it, and as hard to sympathize as he is, you definitely feel his pain in these moments. One other bit that normally could have been really stupid from my point of view is a scene where Nikki, she's been awake possibly for days. We see later on that when this new all-loving bear version of Nikki goes to sleep, the real Nikki is able to speak, if only briefly. It's a very effective, sad moment, but it's implied she's been up for days and everything about her has become about Bear. And when he goes to work on a day where she has the day off, she stands in one place waiting for him to come home. And unclear how long she's been awake, how long she hasn't left his fucking side. And what does she do the moment she's alone and he's gone? She pisses, relieves herself, pisses, and shits right on the floor while remaining completely still, waiting for him to come home. And it's a shocking moment, and normally I don't take scenes with characters urinating, defecating seriously. It's hard. I find it almost impossible not to laugh or find it ridiculous. But here, this was actually horrifying. This was very just shocking and heartbreaking. Again, you feel the pain of these characters. Now, on to the ending, which I think the ending is very fitting because the bear character, again, not evil. He's caused so much shit, so much trouble. So many people have suffered because of him. The Sarah character, the friend at the store, who's actually the daughter of the owner, it's revealed that she actually has a crush on Bear. For what reasons, I will never know. And they actually do have some good chemistry together. It's one of those cases of never seeing what was right in front of him. And they begin to have a moment where it seems like there might be a happy ending in the future, but nope. Nikki comes right in that jump scare I mentioned and just brutally murders Sarah. Just shreds her fucking face into a fucking Lucio Fulci masterpiece of blood. That for me, that was the scene that just hurt me the most, because I liked Sarah. She was nice, maybe a bit naive, but very nice, and did not deserve that. The Ian character, we find out that he's not as good a friend to Bear as he initially thought, but he didn't deserve to die, which does happen when he tries to barge in near the end. There's a scene where Bear tries to get him to make a wish to undo the wish he did, because the rules of the wish are a person can only make one wish with the one stick and can't make another with another stick. They even have a moment where they acknowledge how silly that is, but Ian, given the stick, doesn't believe it, so he just sarcastically, like Bear did earlier, says, "I wish for $1 billion," and then literally $1 billion starts to rain down in the room. That scene was a little goofy, but it fit things. I do think it still fit. The effect was a little cheap, but it's $1 million movie. You work with what you can get. But after that, Ian barges in and Nikki just kills him. And for me, those are the most heartbreaking parts. The deaths of Ian and Sarah. Those characters, I like them. They were good supporting characters. Ian has a few questionable moments, but overall, they were more decent than Bear ever was. At the end, Bear, who has been told the only way to break the spell is if he dies, locks himself in the bathroom and tries to commit suicide, and he, no surprise given what we've seen throughout the film, is too scared to do so. But then in an interesting twist, he suddenly falls in love with Nikki for real because, well, he was locked in there to stay away from her. She took one of those sticks, which for him to be as in love with her as she is with him. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And at first I'm like, okay, I could maybe get behind this. Like, it's fucked up, but it almost feels tragically fitting. But then he does die. Like, he was too cowardly to, like, shoot himself. But he did try to, like, pop pills. But then he tried to make himself throw up when he chickened out at the last second. But that's when the wish took a hold of him. And now he is fucking dead. And Nikki's about to kill herself when the spell breaks, the one he made, and she's free, but she's surrounded by dead bodies covered in blood, and that's where it ends. I think the ending is fitting because Bear, he's caused so much trouble that an ending where he dies, I feel, is the most fitting conclusion. However, this ending is pretty abrupt, and that does not ruin the film. However, it's one of those things where the moment Nikki, she regains her free will, control, it just ends, but I'm just like, there's still dead bodies and carnage around her. Like, part of me just wishes we had added one more scene to show what happens, because I'm like, the way this ends, I'm like, is she gonna get in trouble for this? Because it doesn't look good, and I just wish we could have gotten an ending that showed that she was gonna be okay. And this is just my personal opinion, I think the Bear character, I can live with him dead, but the Ian and Sarah characters, I was really hoping there'd be some way with all this magic crap to work in a way where both of these characters could have been saved. But no, it's very tragic, very bloody, and it's a little up in the air. Like, I'm all for ambiguous endings if they fit, but a little closure would have been fine here. But regardless, it matches this type of horror story. Not sure I would have ended it that way, but it fit. And Corey Barker, he really does a good horror film, and I'm interested to see what he does next. The actors, particularly Inde, Navarrette, I really want to see where she goes, because holy shit is she amazing. I mean, if Amy Madigan can win an Oscar for Weapons, I think this chick's got a future. So, all in all, I had a great time. Not a happy time per se, but it was great, and I think this is a good example of a small production just becoming a smash hit, because I've looked, it's already grossed many, many times its fucking budget. So looks like it's on the right track, and hope you enjoyed this review. It's been a mixed year of movies for me so far, so I'm happy to see one that I really love. This and Lee Cronin's The Mummy are my favorite films I've seen in the cinema so far this year, and we'll see what comes next. Hope you are having a good spring, and I will see you again hopefully soon.